The bridge of the USS Liberty hummed with the quiet sounds of deep space patrol. Commander Jake Morrison sat in his captain's chair, watching the stars drift past on the main screen. It was his third year commanding the destroyer, and he had grown used to the long hours of empty space between the planets. "Another quiet day in the middle of nowhere," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from her position at the communications station. She was young, only 26, but she had the best ears in the fleet for picking up strange signals. Morrison smiled. "Quiet is good, Carter. Quiet means everyone is safe." The Liberty was on routine patrol along the edge of human space. They were checking trade routes, looking for pirates, and making sure the shipping lanes stayed clear. It was important work, but not very exciting. Most days, they saw nothing but empty space and distant stars. Chief Engineer Ben Rodriguez walked onto the bridge, carrying a coffee mug that read, "Best Dad in the Galaxy." His daughter had given it to him before his last deployment. "Captain, all systems are running smooth. Engines are purring like a kitten." "Good to hear, Ben. How are the long-range sensors today?" "Working fine, sir. If there's anything out there bigger than a space rock, we'll see it coming." Morrison nodded. The Liberty was a good ship with a good crew. They had been together for 2 years now, and they worked like a well-oiled machine. Everyone knew their job, and everyone did it well. Lieutenant Commander Nick Walsh looked up from his tactical station. "Sir, we're coming up on grid section 77 Alpha. That's the last checkpoint before we turn around and head back to base. Any traffic out there, Nick?" "Nothing on the scopes, sir. This sector has been empty for months. No ships, no stations, no nothing." Morrison was about to respond when Carter suddenly sat up straight at her station. She put her hand to her earpiece and frowned. "Sir, I'm picking up something strange." "What kind of strange?" "It's very weak, but it looks like a signal. It's coming from deep space, way out beyond the normal shipping lanes." Morrison felt his pulse quicken. Any signal in deep space was worth investigating. "Put it on the main speakers, Carter." The bridge filled with the sound of static and cosmic noise. Then, buried in the background, Morrison heard it. A faint beeping pattern that repeated every few seconds. "That's not natural," said Dr. Susan Blake, who had just arrived on the bridge for her daily check-in. As chief medical officer, she liked to keep track of what was happening around the ship. "That pattern is too regular to be from a star or planet." Carter worked at her station, trying to clean up the signal. "It's definitely artificial, sir. The pattern is mathematical. It's counting prime numbers. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. Universal language," Morrison said quietly. "Someone is trying to communicate." The mathematical sequence was something that any intelligent species would recognize. It was the kind of signal that scientists had always said would be the first sign of alien life. But this was different. This was not a greeting from a distant world. This was a distress call. "How far away is it?" Morrison asked. Carter checked her instruments. "The signal is coming from about 4 light years away, sir." "That's way outside our normal patrol area." 4 light years, Morrison repeated. "That's a long way to go on a maybe." But even as he said it, Morrison knew he was going to investigate. The signal was clearly a call for help, and no human ship would ignore a distress call, even from an unknown species. "Carter, can you tell anything else about the signal?" "I'm trying to clean it up, sir. There's a lot of interference." She worked at her station for several minutes, adjusting filters and boosting the signal strength. "Sir, I'm getting something else now. It's not just the counting pattern anymore." "What is it?" "It sounds like voices, sir. Multiple voices. They're speaking in a language I don't recognize, but the computer is trying to translate." The Universal Translator was a piece of technology that all human ships carried. It could learn new languages by listening to patterns and comparing them to known languages. It was not perfect, but it was usually good enough to get the basic meaning across. "What's it saying?" Morrison asked. Carter listened to her earpiece, then looked up with a worried expression. "Sir, the computer is having trouble with the translation, but it keeps picking up words that might mean help and dying and children." The bridge went quiet. Everyone was listening now, straining to hear the faint voices from deep space. "Captain," said Lieutenant Sam Hughes from the intelligence station, "if there are people out there who need help, we have to do something." Morrison looked around. At his crew, he saw the same determination in all their faces. They were human, and humans did not leave people in trouble, even if those people were from another world. "Carter, can you get a better fix on the location?" "Working on it, sir. The signal is definitely coming from the Kepler 442 system. That's an empty system. No planet suitable for life." "Then what's out there?" "I don't know, sir. But whatever it is, it's in trouble." Morrison made his decision. "Ben, how long would it take to get to the Kepler 442 system at maximum warp?" Rodriguez did quick calculations in his head. "About 3 days, sir." "That's pushing the engines pretty hard, but the Liberty can handle it." "Nick, what about weapons and shields? Are we ready for trouble?" "All systems are green, sir. We're ready for anything." Morrison stood up from his captain's chair. "All right, people. We're going to investigate this signal. If there are people out there who need help, we're going to help them. That's what humans do." "Sir," Carter said, still listening to her earpiece, "the signal is getting weaker. I think whatever is out there is running out of power. Then we better hurry. Carter, keep monitoring that signal. I want to know the second it changes or disappears. Ben, give me everything the engines can handle. We're going to full speed." "Aye, sir." Setting course for Kepler 442, the Liberty turned away from its patrol route and accelerated toward the unknown. Morrison felt the familiar vibration of the warp drive engaging and watched the stars on the main screen stretch into lines as the ship jumped to faster-than-light travel. "Carter, any change in the signal?" "Still there, sir, but very weak. I'm recording everything in case we lose it completely." Morrison nodded. 3 days was a long time when people were dying. He hoped they would not be too late. As the Liberty raced through space toward the mysterious signal, Morrison thought about what they might find. First contact with an alien species was supposed to be a carefully planned event with diplomats and scientists. Instead, it looked like it was going to happen in the middle of a rescue mission. He looked around at his crew, all of them focused on their jobs, all of them ready to help whoever was calling for aid across the empty darkness of space. Morrison felt proud to be human, proud to be part of a species that would travel across the galaxy to answer a cry for help. 3 days, he said to himself. Hold on, whoever you are. We're coming. 3 days of hard travel had pushed the USS Liberty and her crew to their limits. The engines had run hot the entire journey, and Chief Engineer Ben Rodriguez had barely left the engine room except to grab quick meals and a few hours of sleep. Commander. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the countdown timer on the main screen. 15 minutes until they dropped out of warp at the Kepler 442 system. He had not slept well during the journey. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard those faint voices calling for help across the darkness of space. Captain, Lieutenant Amy Carter called from her communication station. I'm still picking up the signal, but it's much weaker now. Whatever is out there is definitely running out of power. Any changes in the message? The mathematical pattern stopped 12 hours ago. Now it's just voices, and they sound more desperate. The computer is getting better at translating, but most of what I'm hearing doesn't make sense. Morrison walked over to Carter's station. What kind of things are they saying? Carter listened to her earpiece for a moment, then looked up with sad eyes. They keep talking about their children, sir. And they mention something about being abandoned. The word betrayed comes up a lot, too. Dr. Susan Blake had been on the bridge for the past hour, preparing for whatever they might find. She looked worried. Captain, if we're dealing with injured aliens, I have no idea what their biology might be like. I'm not sure how much help I can give them. We'll figure it out, Doc. We always do. Lieutenant Commander Nick Walsh looked up from his tactical. Station. Sir, dropping out of warp in 10 minutes. All weapons and shields are ready, just in case. Morrison nodded. They had no idea what they were flying into. The distress signal could be real, or it could be a trap. Pirates sometimes used fake distress calls to lure ships into ambushes. But the voices had sounded so genuine, so full of pain and fear. All hands, this is the captain, Morrison announced over the ship's intercom. We're about to drop out of warp at the source of the distress signal. We don't know what we're going to find out there, but whatever it is, we're going to help if we can. That's what makes us human. Stay alert and be ready for anything. The countdown timer reached 0, and the Liberty dropped out of warp speed. The stars stopped stretching and returned to normal points of light. The main screen showed empty space ahead of them. Where are they? Morrison asked. Carter checked her instruments. The signal is coming from directly ahead, sir. Distance is about 1 million kilometers. I don't see anything on the screen. Wait, said Lieutenant Sam Hughes from the intelligence station. I'm picking up something on long-range sensors. It's big, really big. Put it on the main screen. The view changed, and suddenly the bridge went completely silent. What they saw floating in space ahead of them was beyond anything they had imagined. Dotted was a fleet of alien ships, dozens of them, drifting in a loose formation. But these were not like any ships humans had ever built. They were beautiful, with smooth curves and graceful lines that looked more grown than built. They seemed to be made of some kind of organic material that gleamed dully in the starlight. My God, whispered Dr. Blake. They're gorgeous. But as the Liberty moved closer, it became clear that something was terribly wrong. The ships were dark, with no lights visible anywhere. Some of them were damaged, with holes torn in their hulls. Others were missing pieces, as if they had been deliberately broken apart. Ben, Morrison called to his engineer, what are you seeing on the scanners? Rodriguez worked at his station, his face growing more grim by the second. Captain, these ships have been here for a long time, maybe 3 or 4 months. Most of them have no power at all. Life support is failing on every single vessel. How? Many ships are there. I count 47 vessels, sir. They range in size from small fighters to huge ships that must be passenger liners or colony ships. Morrison felt his heart sink. 47 ships meant thousands of people, maybe tens of thousands. And they were all dying in the cold vacuum of space. Are there any life signs? I'm reading life forms on most of the ships, sir, but the readings are very weak. Whatever these people are, they're not doing well. Carter suddenly looked up from her station with excitement. Sir, I'm getting a new signal. It's much stronger than before. I think one of the ships is trying to talk to us directly. Put it on the speakers. The bridge filled with the sound of static, and then a voice came through. It was speaking in an alien language, but the universal translator was working better now that the signal was stronger. Unknown vessel. This is Commander Veltar of the 4. Keth Mori ship Bright Star. Please respond. We are in desperate need of assistance. Morrison grabbed the communications microphone. Commander Veltar, this is Commander Jake Morrison of the human vessel USS Liberty. We received your distress signal and came to help. What is your situation? There was a long pause, and then the alien voice returned, sounding amazed. You came. You actually came. We have been calling for help for so long, and you came. We're here now, Commander. Tell me what happened to your fleet. Another pause, longer this time. When the alien spoke again, his voice was filled with sadness and anger. We were betrayed, Commander Morrison, left to die in this empty place by those who promised to protect us. Morrison looked around at his crew. They were all listening intently, and he could see the anger building in their faces. Humans did not like bullies, and they especially did not like people who abandoned those who needed help. Commander Veltar, how many people are in your fleet? Nearly 2 million souls, Commander. Men, women, and children from 3 different worlds. We were refugees, seeking safety from the Hegemony Empire. Our escort promised to take us to neutral space, but instead they disabled our ships and left us here to die. 2 million people. Morrison felt the weight of that number settle on his shoulders. The Liberty could maybe take a few hundred refugees, but 2 million was impossible. What kind of assistance do you need most urgently? Medical supplies, power cells, food, water. Our children are dying, Commander. Every hour we lose more of them. Dr. Blake stepped forward. Captain, I need to get over to their ships. If children are dying, I have to try to help them. Morrison nodded. Commander Veltar, we're going to send over some of our people to help. Can your ships handle visitors? Yes, Commander. The Bright Star still has atmosphere and artificial gravity. We will welcome your people with great honor. Stand by, Commander. We're coming over. Morrison turned to his crew. Ben, I want you to take a team and see what you can do about their power systems. Susan, take medical supplies and see what you can do for their injured. Carter, keep working on communications with the other ships. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with here. What about you, sir? Asked Walsh. I'm going over to meet this Commander Veltar face to face. I want to hear the whole story of what happened to these people. As the crew prepared for the rescue mission, Morrison looked out at the fleet of dark ships floating in space. 2 million people, abandoned by those who had promised to help them, left to die in the cold emptiness between the stars. Not on my watch, he said quietly to himself. Not while there are humans in this galaxy. The Liberty moved closer to the alien fleet, her crew ready to do what humans always did when they found people in trouble. They were going to help, no matter what it cost them. Commander Veltar's voice came over the speakers one more time, filled with wonder and hope. Commander Morrison, why did you come? Your people do not know us. We are nothing to you. Why risk your ship and crew for strangers? Morrison smiled as he headed toward the shuttle bay. Commander, you're about to learn something about humans. We don't leave people behind. Not ever. The shuttle bay doors of the USS Liberty opened, and Commander Jake Morrison stepped into his personal shuttle, along with Dr. Susan Blake and a team of medical personnel. Chief Engineer Ben Rodriguez was in another shuttle with his repair crew and emergency power supplies. Liberty Control, this is Shuttle 1. We're ready for departure, Morrison said into his headset. Copy that, Shuttle 1. Good luck over there, sir, came the reply from Lieutenant Commander Nick Walsh, who was now in command of the Liberty. The 2 shuttles launched and flew across the dark space between the human ship and the alien fleet. As they got closer, Morrison could see just how damaged the refugee ships really were. Some had large holes blown in their sides. Others were missing entire sections. It was amazing that anyone was still alive inside them. Captain, Dr. Blake said from the seat next to him, I've been thinking about what we might find over there. If these people have been without proper life support for months, they could be suffering from all kinds of problems. Malnutrition, oxygen poisoning, radiation exposure. Do what you can, Doc. That's all anyone can ask. The shuttle approached the largest of the alien ships, a massive vessel that must have been over a kilometer long. Up close, Morrison could see that it was, indeed, made of some kind of organic material. The hull looked almost like living wood, with patterns that reminded him of tree bark. Shuttle 1, this is Commander Veltar. You are cleared to dock at Bay 7 on our lower section. We have prepared a welcoming area for your people. Morrison followed the alien's directions and landed, his shuttle in a bay that was clearly designed for much different ships than human ones. The bay was too big, and the docking equipment was the wrong shape, but they managed to land safely docked as the shuttle's engines powered down. Morrison looked out the window at the alien docking bay. The walls glowed with a soft, warm light that seemed to come from the material itself. It was beautiful, but he could see that some of the light panels were flickering or dark completely. "Atmosphere checks out, sir," reported Sergeant Tony Lopez, the team's security chief. "It's a little thin, but we can breathe it." Morrison put on his sidearm and opened the shuttle door. The first thing that hit him was the smell. It was not bad, just different. It reminded him of flowers and rain, with an undertone of something that might have been cinnamon. A group of aliens was waiting for them at the edge of the docking bay. Morrison had seen pictures of aliens in movies and books, but nothing had prepared him for the real thing. The beings were tall, maybe 7 feet in height, with long limbs and graceful movements. Their skin had a pale blue color and was covered with patterns of light that slowly moved and changed. Their faces were angular, but not unpleasant, with large eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom and deep sadness. One of them stepped forward and spoke in accented but clear English. "Commander Morrison, I am Veltar. Welcome aboard the Bright Star. We are honored by your presence." Morrison stepped forward and offered his hand. "Commander Veltar, I'm glad we could finally meet face to face." The alien looked at Morrison's extended hand for a moment, then reached out with his own long-fingered hand and grasped it gently. "This is your greeting custom, yes? I have studied human culture since we detected your ship. You know about humans?" "We know of many species, Commander. The galaxy is vast, and information travels slowly, but we have heard stories of your people. They say humans are warriors who never surrender and never abandon their friends." Morrison smiled. "Well, we're here, aren't we?" Veltar's light patterns brightened, which Morrison guessed might be the equivalent of a smile. "Yes, you are here. Come, let me show you what has become of our people." They walked through corridors that curved and flowed like they had grown naturally rather than being built. The walls gave off that same soft glow, but Morrison could see that many sections were dark. Emergency lighting provided just enough illumination to see by. "How long have you been without main power?" Morrison asked. 6 weeks now. We have been running on emergency power, but that is nearly gone as well. Another few days, and even the life support will fail completely." They passed groups of alien refugees sitting in the hallways. Men, women, and children, all with that same pale blue skin and moving light patterns. But Morrison could see that their lights were dim, and many of them looked weak and sick. The children were the worst to see. They were smaller versions of the adults, but their light patterns barely glowed at all. Some of them lay still in their parents' arms, and Morrison was not sure if they were sleeping or something worse. "Commander Veltar," Dr. Blake said, "I need to examine some of your people, especially the children. Can you tell me about your biology?" "Of course, Dr. Blake. We are carbon-based, like humans, but we depend on bioelectric energy more than you do. The patterns on our skin are not just decoration. They are part of our nervous system. When we become weak, the patterns fade." "What? Do you eat? What kind of atmosphere do you need?" "We can eat many of the same foods as humans, though we prefer fruits and vegetables. Our atmosphere is similar to yours, though we need less oxygen." As they walked deeper into the ship, Veltar began to tell them the full story of what had happened to his people. "We are the Kethmori," he said. "Our homeworld was in the Andara system, a beautiful place with vast forests and crystal cities. We lived in peace for thousands of years, but then the hegemony came." "Tell me about this hegemony," Morrison said. "They are an empire that consumes everything in its path. They stripped mine entire worlds, leaving nothing but dead rock behind. They demanded that we surrender our planet to them. When we refused, they sent their war fleets. They passed a viewing window, and Veltar stopped to look out at the other ships in the fleet. We were not warriors, Commander Morrison. We had no great weapons, no battle fleets. But we had friends. The Xanthari people promised to help us evacuate our world and take us to safety in neutral space." The Xanthari, who are they? "A powerful species with advanced technology and strong military forces. They have been the protectors of this region of space for centuries. When they offered to escort our refugee fleet to safety, we trusted them completely." Morrison had a bad feeling about where this story was going. What happened? Veltar's light patterns dimmed with sadness and anger. "For weeks, we traveled together toward the neutral systems. 3 species in our fleet, the Kethmori, the gentle Sivari, and the wise Korath. Nearly 2 million souls seeking nothing but a place to live in peace. They reached a large viewing chamber where hundreds of aliens sat or lay on the floor. Morrison could see that these people were in bad shape. Many were unconscious, and the ones who were awake moved slowly and with obvious pain. Then, 3 days from the neutral zone, hegemony scouts found our fleet. We thought we were doomed, but the Xanthari commander assured us that his ships could fight off any hegemony patrol. Instead, he sent a message to the hegemony ships." "What kind of message?" Veltar's patterns flashed with anger. "He told them that we had already been destroyed, that our ships had suffered reactor failures, and that there were no survivors. Then he disabled our engines and weapons and left us, here to die slowly in the darkness." Morrison felt his own anger rising. "He betrayed you." "Yes. Rather than risk a fight with the hegemony, the Xanthari decided it was easier to simply let us die. They took our escort fees, disabled our ships, and flew away, leaving us trapped in this empty system." Dr. Blake knelt down next to one of the alien children, a small girl whose light patterns were barely visible. "Commander Veltar, how many people have you lost?" "Over 3,000 so far, mostly the very young and the very old. We lose more every day." Morrison looked around at the dying refugees and made a decision that would change everything. "Commander Veltar, we're going to get your people out of here." The alien looked at him with surprise. "Commander Morrison, you have one small ship. We have nearly 2 million people. Even if you could take some of us, what about the rest?" Morrison smiled grimly. "Commander, you clearly don't know much about humans. We don't leave people behind, and we don't give up, ever." Veltar stared at the human commander for a moment. "You truly mean to help all of us?" "Every last one of you. That's a promise." For the first time since the Liberty had arrived, hope began to shine in the aliens. Light patterns. Back aboard the USS Liberty, Commander Jake Morrison stood in the main briefing room with his senior staff. They had been working for 18 hours straight, trying to figure out how to save 2 million refugees with one destroyer. "The situation is worse than we thought," Dr. Susan Blake reported, looking exhausted. "I've examined patients from all 3 species in the fleet. The Kethmori, the Sivari, and the Korath are all dying from different problems. Starvation, disease, system failures. They have maybe a week left before people start dying much faster." "Chief," Engineer Ben Rodriguez rubbed his tired eyes. "I've been working with their engineers to restore power to the most critical ships. We can get life support running on about half the fleet, but that's the best we can do with our limited supplies. Lieutenant Commander Nick Walsh leaned back in his chair. Captain, I've been running the numbers. Even if we could somehow get all these people to the nearest human colony, it would take dozens of trips. We'd need months to move them all. Morrison looked around the table at his crew. They were good people, the best he had ever served with, but even they seemed overwhelmed by the size of the problem. What about calling for help? Asked Lieutenant Amy Carter. We could contact Starfleet Command and request a full rescue fleet. I already tried that, Morrison replied. It would take at least 3 weeks for a rescue fleet to get here. These people don't have 3 weeks. Lieutenant Sam Hughes looked up from his datapad. Sir, I've been studying the information commander. Veltar gave us about the hegemony and the Zenthari. This is bigger than just one refugee fleet. What do you mean? The hegemony has been expanding for decades, sir. They've destroyed or enslaved dozens of worlds. And the Zenthari have been letting it happen. Every time someone asks for help against the hegemony, the Zenthari find an excuse not to get involved. Morrison felt his anger building. So they're bullies and cowards. It gets worse, sir. According to the refugee records, the Zenthari have done this before. They offer to escort refugee fleets to safety, collect payment for protection, then abandon the refugees when the hegemony shows up. How many times? At least 6 times in the past 10 years, sir. Millions of innocent people left to die in space. The room went quiet. Morrison could see the same anger in his crew's faces that he felt in his own heart. This was exactly the kind of injustice that humans could not stand. Sir, Carter said quietly, there's something else. I've been monitoring long-range communications. There are hegemony ships moving in this direction. Morrison sat up straight. How many ships? How far away? A patrol squadron, sir. 6 heavy cruisers. They're about 2 days away at their current speed. Rodriguez slammed his fist on the table. They're coming to finish the job. Make sure there are no survivors left to tell anyone what really happened. Can we outrun them? Morrison asked Walsh. Not with 2 million refugees, sir. Even if we could get their ships running, most of them are too damaged to travel at high speed. Morrison stood up and walked to the window that looked out at the refugee fleet. Dozens of alien ships floated in the darkness, filled with families who had done nothing wrong except refuse to give up their homes to strip miners. Captain, Dr. Blake said softly, maybe we should take who we can and leave. Save a few hundred people rather than lose everyone. Morrison turned around to face his crew. Doctor, how many people can we fit on the Liberty? If we pack them in tight, maybe 400, 500 at the most, and leave 1,995,000 people to die? Blake looked down at the table. I know it sounds horrible, sir, but no. Morrison's voice was firm. We don't choose who lives and who dies based on how much room we have. We find another way. What other way? Walsh asked. Sir, I respect what you're trying to do, but we can't fight 6 hegemony cruisers with 1 destroyer. It's suicide. Morrison smiled grimly. Nick, have you ever studied human military history? Some, sir. Why? Humans have a long tradition of winning battles we're supposed to lose. The Alamo, Thermopylae, the Warsaw Ghetto. Sometimes the important thing isn't whether you can win. Sometimes the important thing is whether you're willing to fight. Rodriguez leaned forward. Captain, what are you thinking? I'm thinking that these refugees have been abandoned by everyone who is supposed to help them. The Zenthari, the other. Galactic powers, everyone. They've been left to die because nobody wants to stand up to the hegemony. And maybe it's time someone did. Hughes looked up from his datapad. Sir, are you talking about fighting the hegemony squadron? I'm talking about giving these people a chance to fight for themselves. Then, How many of the refugee ships still have weapons? Rodriguez checked his notes. About 15 ships have weapons that could be restored to working order. Nothing fancy, mostly old defensive systems, but they could fight if they had to. And how many of the refugees are former military? I don't know, sir. Why? Morrison walked back to the table and leaned on it with both hands. Because I think we're looking at this problem the wrong way. We keep thinking about how to run away with these people. What if instead we help them stand and fight? Carter stared at him. Sir, most of these people are civilians. Families with children. Most of them, yes, but not all of them. Commander, Veltar told me that some of the Kethmori used to be soldiers before their world was destroyed. Same with the other species. They have people who know how to fight, but they're weak, sir. Starving and sick. They're weak because they've given up hope, because everyone they trusted has abandoned them. What do you think would happen if someone finally stood up for them? If someone finally said, enough is enough? Walsh was starting to understand. You want to turn the refugee fleet into a fighting force. I want to give them the chance to save themselves. We can't evacuate 2 million people, but maybe we can help 2 million people fight back. Blake shook her head. Captain, even if you could get some of their ships combat ready, you're still talking about 15 old refugee ships against 6 modern hegemony cruisers. 16 ships, Morrison corrected. Don't forget about the Liberty. That's still terrible odds. Morrison grinned. Doctor, you're forgetting something important. Those hegemony ships are expecting to find a bunch of helpless refugees waiting to die. They're not expecting a fight. And there's something else they're not expecting. What's that? They're not expecting to face humans. Rodriguez was getting excited now. Captain, if we could restore power and weapons to even half their fleet, and if we could train their people in basic combat tactics, it would still be a long shot, Walsh said, but it might work. The hegemony has been winning for so long because nobody fights back. They're probably not used to real resistance. Morrison looked around at his crew. I'm not going to order anyone to do this. This is volunteer work. Anyone who wants to stay out of the fight can take a shuttle back to human space and report what happened here. Nobody moved. Are you all crazy? Morrison asked with a smile. Carter grinned back at him. Probably, sir. But we're human crazy, and that's the best kind. Morrison nodded. All right then. Let's go tell Commander Veltar that his people are about to learn what it means to have humans on their side. As the crew prepared to return to the refugee fleet, Morrison thought about what they were about to attempt. It was dangerous, probably impossible, and definitely against regulations. But it was also the right thing to do, and doing the right thing, even when it was hard, was what made them human. 24 hours later, the refugee fleet looked very different. Chief Engineer Ben Rodriguez had worked miracles with the alien technology, restoring power and weapons to 18 ships. The aliens had worked alongside the humans with desperate energy, knowing their lives depended on what they could accomplish. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Kethmori ship Bright Star, looking out at the fleet formation they had created. It was not pretty, and it was not perfect, but it was ready to fight. Commander Morrison, said Commander Veltar, who stood beside him, my people have not fought a battle in over 200 years. Are you certain this will work? Morrison watched as the alien crews ran through their final weapon checks. Commander, your people have something the hegemony doesn't expect. They have everything to lose and everything to fight for. That makes them dangerous. Dr. Susan Blake had done her own kind of miracle over the past day. She had treated the sickest refugees and gotten hundreds of former soldiers back on their feet. They were still weak, but they were strong enough to fight. Sir, Lieutenant Amy Carter called from the communication station. "I'm picking up the Hegemony Squadron on long-range sensors. 6 heavy cruisers, just like we expected. Vale, be here in about 2 hours. Any sign that they know we're here?" "No, sir. As far as they know, they're just coming to clean up the wreckage of a dead refugee fleet." Morrison nodded. That was exactly what he was counting on. The Hegemony ships would come in expecting no resistance, and they would get the surprise of their lives. Lieutenant Commander Nick Walsh was at the tactical station, coordinating with the alien weapon officers. "Sir, all ships report ready for battle. It's not going to be easy, but we're as prepared as we can be." "What about the non-combatant ships?" "The civilian ships with families and children have moved to the far side of the system. If things go badly, they have enough power to escape to the nearest inhabited system." Morrison felt good about that. Even if the battle went wrong, at least some of the refugees would survive to tell their story. Lieutenant Sam Hughes looked up from his intelligence station. "Sir, I've been studying hegemony battle tactics. They usually come in fast and hard, expecting their enemies to surrender quickly. They're not used to long fights. Good, we need every advantage we can get." Commander Veltar's light patterns were brighter than Morrison had ever seen them. The alien commander had found hope again, and it showed in every gesture. "Commander Morrison, I want you to know that whatever happens today, you have given my people something precious. You have given us back our dignity. Commander, your people never lost their dignity. They just forgot they had it." The next hour passed slowly as both fleets prepared for battle. The humans shared their tactical knowledge with the alien crews, teaching them maneuvers and strategies that had been developed in hundreds of human conflicts. "Remember," Morrison said over the fleet communication channel, "we're not trying to destroy all 6 hegemony ships. We just need to hurt them badly enough that they think twice about coming back. Make them pay for every meter of space." Finally, Carter called out the words everyone had been waiting for. "Contact. Hegemony Squadron dropping out of warp. Distance. 1,000,000 kilometers and closing fast." Morrison opened the fleet communication channel. "All ships, this is Morrison. You know what to do. Fight smart, fight together, and show these bullies what happens when they pick on the wrong people." The hegemony ships came in exactly as Hughes had predicted, fast and aggressive, expecting to find nothing but floating wreckage. Instead, they found a battle line of 19 ships waiting for them. The lead hegemony cruiser, a massive black ship covered in weapon ports, sent a message on all frequencies. "Unknown vessels, you are trespassing in hegemony space. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Morrison grabbed the microphone. "Hegemony ships, this is Commander Jake Morrison of the Human Navy. These people are under our protection. Turn around and leave or learn why humans have never lost a war." There was a long pause, and then the hegemony commander's voice came back, filled with arrogance and amusement. "Humans, we have heard of your small, primitive species. 1 human ship and a collection of refugee garbage will not stop the hegemony. We'll see about that." The hegemony ships opened fire first, sending streams of energy weapons toward the refugee fleet. But Morrison had taught the alien captains well. Instead of sitting still like targets, the refugee ships scattered and began moving in the unpredictable. Patterns that human fighters had used for centuries. The USS Liberty led the charge, its weapons blazing as it dove toward the enemy formation. Morrison had given command of his ship to Walsh while he coordinated the overall battle from the Bright Star. "All ships, focus fire on the lead cruiser," Morrison ordered. "Take out their command ship first. 18 alien ships and 1 human." Destroyer concentrated their fire on the lead hegemony vessel. The ancient alien weapons were not as powerful as modern human guns, but there were a lot of them. and they were all firing at the same target. The hegemony commander had not expected this level of coordination. His ship's shields began to fail under the concentrated bombardment. "Impossible," came his voice over the radio. "Refugee ships cannot fight like this." "They can when they have humans teaching them," Morrison replied. The battle raged for 20 minutes. The refugee ships fought with a desperation and fury that surprised even Morrison. These people had lost their homes, been betrayed by their protectors, and left to die in space. Now they finally had a chance to hit back at the empire that had caused their suffering. 2 of the refugee ships were destroyed, their crews dying as heroes in defense of their families. But they took one of the hegemony cruisers with them and damaged 2 others badly. The Liberty performed like the Magnificent warship she was, dancing through the enemy formation and striking with deadly precision. Her human crew fought with the skill and determination that had made their species famous across the galaxy. But it was the refugees themselves who won the battle. The Sivari ship Dawn's Hope rammed a damaged hegemony cruiser, destroying both vessels, but saving the rest of the fleet from a devastating attack. The Korath fighters used suicide runs to take out enemy weapon systems. The Kethmori ships fought with a grace and beauty that was deadly to behold. When the smoke cleared, 3 hegemony ships were destroyed and 2 more were badly damaged. The surviving enemy vessels were limping away at best speed, no longer interested in finishing off refugees. "This is not over, humans," the hegemony commander sent as his fleet retreated. "The Empire will remember this day." Morrison smiled as he watched the enemy ships disappear into warp. "So will we. And so will every other species in this galaxy who has been waiting for someone to stand up to you." Commander Veltar walked over to Morrison, his light patterns blazing with joy and pride. "Commander Morrison, we did it. We actually did it." "You did it, Commander. Your people fought like warriors today." "We fought like people who had humans standing beside them. There is a difference." Over the next few days, word of the battle spread throughout the galaxy. The story of how humans had helped a refugee fleet defeat the mighty hegemony sent shockwaves through every spacefaring civilization. For the first time in decades, other species began to think that maybe the hegemony could be stopped. Maybe. They did not have to keep surrendering and abandoning those who needed help. The refugee fleet eventually made it to safe space, escorted by a growing number of ships from species who had decided they were tired of being afraid. Morrison and the Liberty returned to human space as heroes, but more importantly, they had established something new in the galaxy. They had established the idea that no one had to face the darkness alone, as long as there were humans willing to answer the call for help. And from that day forward, the phrase "leave no one behind" became known throughout the galaxy as the human way.